Okay, here we have 11001001. I'm trying to remember what letter that binary sequence goes to, and if I remember right, it's one of the block things. Da 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 da. I. Oh, IBM's early update is I. And a one of the box characters in modern ASCII. Oh, in Unicode, it's actually translated as a copyright symbol. That's amusing. Anyways, enough of that. So, whatever the heck the episode name means is completely unimportant to the episode. It's just binary numbers. If these were chosen for a specific reason, I don't know what it was. The episode, however, is the one that introduces the Bynars, a race which is very rarely seen in Star Trek, but is actually seen again. Now, the idea here is that the Enterprise D is here so that the Bynars can work on upgrading the computer systems, which sounds great. The Bynars have demonstrated their skills previously on the USS Wellington and are probably going to do that with several other Starfleet vessels. Here's a question that always popped up to my mind. What is the political affiliation of the Bynars? Yeah, they're kind of unclear initially. It's like, oh, these are probably a Federation member, right? Not really. And that's the part that seems rather strange is that why exactly wouldn't the Bynars just tell Starfleet, hey, we need help, if they, actually had, if they were a Federation member? Like, this is one of those very, very strange things. It's like the Bynar are acting secretive and being uncooperative with the Federation for reasons that are seemingly just fully arbitrary. Now, the specific reasons for this in the episode is like, well, it was too important to us to risk failure, and we decided that if we asked for help that had a lower chance of success than stealing your stuff and using your stuff to do it without asking. And that is the real reason they're doing the computer upgrades. The computer upgrades are actually to make the ship capable of storing their planetary database, because apparently they don't have the ability to protect their planetary database from the system-wide catastrophe that's about to hit them, and need to have the database protected on board a Federation starship, which does actually work. It's just one of those things where I'm like, why? Why can't you build? They do kind of sort of say that they have plans for handling this problem differently in the future at the end of the episode, but yeah, that's never really something that comes to being on screen anyways. Might be something to play with, might not. Hard to say. Also, the interesting thing with the Bynars and their central computer thing is that having the computers offline actually causes the Bynars to pass out. Much like the Borg, the Bynars have come to be physically dependent on the hardware that they are cybernetically attached to. Now, unlike the Borg, they don't have wireless transmission for communicating with each other, which is something that seems kind of strange. But that actually only seems to apply when it's direct person-to-person communication. Um, they do seem to have a permanent uplink to their central computer, so that they can actually do the equivalent of sending text messages to each other through the central computer, but not, direct. Actually, it's possible that the reason they do that weird modem speak thing is actually that it's just faster when they're communicating with each other in person or something. They didn't really explain that because, like, we know that Bynars need their computer uplink to function. They pass out and become uh, unable to actually do anything if they no longer have a computer database connection. How exactly this applies over several light years, I don't know. That's something that gets brought up in the episode but never explained, is that the Bynars that are working on the Enterprise are not doing so in the Bynar solar system. They are doing so, and well, it's several light years away, and the presumably they do have some method of uplinking to their central computer system, but how that works isn't explained at all. And apparently, having the central computer system offline affects Bynars everywhere, whether they're in the Bynar system or not. Don't understand that either. At any rate, if the Bynar computer system had gotten knocked offline and stayed that way, the race would have functionally died because they would have all been, comatose until they, whatever, like starved to death or something. Anyways, so what would you do with this in a TTRPG? Well, see, this episode has a B plot that is weird as hell. A B plot that makes you scratch your heads and wonder what on earth the Bynars were doing to make this work. Because a critical part of the Bynar plan is to have Picard and Riker be distracted in the holodeck by talking to Minuet, while the Bynars strand the crew of the Enterprise D on the space station where they had been upgrading the ship's computers, fly the ship to Bynaeus, upload the Bynar database into the Enterprise D computer, and then use the Enterprise D to protect the database from being wiped by the solar flare or nova or whatever it was. Well, see, here's the thing. The only way to restore the database and um, fix the problem that the Bynars are having is for Picard and Riker to do it. And the Bynars don't bother telling them that. The Bynars just leave Picard and Riker to figure it out on their own. And, um, leave them in the holodeck talking to Minuet. Now, see, here's the thing. We know that the Bynars were in some way involved with Minuet's creation. Exactly how and why and stuff we don't know. And also there's this weird bit in the episode where Riker asks one of the Bynars about Minuet, and the Bynar says something that makes it seem as if the code they used for Minuet's personality was not a Bynar creation and something that they had found in the Enterprise D computer, which is what made her too real. And that's the part about this episode that gets really, really strange. It's like the whole Bynar plot thing. Like, okay, yes, aliens doing alien things for alien reasons, using alien logic. It's a very sci-fi thing, but sure, whatever. Bynars are actually a very interesting race because of their whole like cybernetic development aspect. The fact that the race exists in twinned pairs is also a strange thing, but in real life, there are in fact species on Earth, other than humans, obviously, that do in fact habitually give birth to live young in pairs. So the idea that maybe the Bynars just naturally have, as part of their reproductive cycle, giving birth to paired offspring is plausible. Also, one of the things with the Bynars is that, unlike humans, the Bynars are kind of sort of androgynous. So the twinned pairs, it's not entirely clear what the purpose of the pairing actually is. Anyways, another thing that's interesting about Minuet is that Minuet is an adaptive program and actually seemingly rewrites aspects of her own code while Picard and Riker are talking to her. Did the Bynars actually want her to do that? I suspect yes. But this is one of those things where, again, it's like you don't know the exact specifics of just how far any of this was actually planned by the Bynar and how much of it was the result of whatever it was that they found in the Enterprise database that allowed them to create Minuet. Because again, we don't actually know what the Bynars did to create Minuet. It's just that Minuet was stated to be the most realistic holographic character that Riker had ever met. And later on in his life, in a episode in a different season, Minuet is actually a character that shows up in a fantasy world, and Riker uses Minuet as a way of identifying that the fantasy world is real, because it's Minuet as Min Riker, who, well, an alien intelligence was reading his mind, like, ah, yes, I will create a fantasy world with the perfect wife of his dreams. Therefore, he will not want to leave the fantasy world and thus live in the fantasy world for all time. Well, Min Riker was chosen as his wife in the fantasy world, and he's like, I know you. You're a hologram. There's no way I would actually marry a hologram. Also, Bin Riker was supposedly a flesh and blood human, and Minuet is not. So yeah, fourth season episode, Future Imperfect. Also, it's like certain clips of the appearance of Minuet were also used in the episode Shades of Grey, but it wasn't it was just stock footage. So technically Minuet pops up in 3 different episodes. Interesting character. This is one of those things where in a TTRPG perspective, this is something that you would have as a recurring NPC sort of thing, which is absolutely something you can do if it's Star Trek Adventures. Like, hey, you met this person at that starbase 5 adventures ago, and oh, we're doing something else this time, but this NPC is going to try to help you with that. I mean, you can totally do stuff like that. Now, that's the other thing about this, is that the basic plot of this episode, the majority of the episode has a fundamental flaw that would make it difficult to adapt to a TTRPG. And that is the fact that the majority of the episode is Picard and Riker talking to Minuet. Most of the cast of the ship is just there as filler. They show up, do a handful of things like, hey, we're here, and then they get left on Starbase 74 when the Bynars steal the Enterprise, and at that point do very, very little other than wait for Picard and Riker to bring the Enterprise back. For a TTRPG, that would be a very, very awkward plot. Now, it's not that they do nothing, but a lot of people wouldn't find that to be fun. Anyway, though, seriously though, sidelining the majority of the main cast in the middle of the episode, it was a bold choice. Let's put it that way. That's actually what made the episode so memorable, though, is that it's just Picard and Riker doing stuff. But problem is that doesn't translate well to a TTRPG. However, if you are doing this in a TTRPG, you don't need to restrict it to just 2. If you're doing something similar to this, you could be like, oh, everyone except the party got beamed off and abandoned. Yes, in the episode as aired, they had a weird half-baked explanation that since the Bynars do everything in pairs, the command code needed to restore the Bynar database needs to be entered by 2 people simultaneously in order to make it work. Even though it's the Enterprise's computer and not a system actually designed by the Bynar, it was modified by the Bynar to act like this for no good reason. I don't get that at all, but that's just the way the episode was written. Anyways, so other things about this that I would pay attention to is like, one, like sentient holodeck characters have been a thing in Star Trek almost as long as they've had the holodeck. The TAS version of the holodeck didn't, as far as I know. But TAS did have various other sentient computer programs, so it wasn't unfathomable for TAS, just not something they actually did, if I remember correctly. I might get back to that. Yeah, well, I mean, after I'm done with the Next Generation, I'm going to do other Star Trek series, so hey. So a sentient holographic character that you find to be a useful individual. I mean, Voyager did that with the Doctor, which worked quite well. So, you know, TNG started it, and so on and so forth. And, you know, having sentient holographic characters for players, I mean, you could make that work, I suppose. The other thing with this is the whole Bynar plot thing. Having friendly aliens steal your ship for alien reasons is absolutely something you can do in a episode. And like I mentioned, is that the whole logic of beaming off everyone but the main cast is doable. You need to come up with a good story explanation for it, though, because the one in this episode was barely passable, and it's something that would possibly get messed up by the players because of the fact that if the players decide they don't want to hang out in the holodeck while the Bynars steal the ship, how are you going to ensure that it's just the players and leave the rest of the crew behind? I'm sure you could think of something, but it would kind of mess the story up a little. This story as written is not one of those things where having people just randomly do different things because they feel like it would actually work well. Anyways, so yeah, Bynars as part of a TTRPG, good idea. Holographic characters as part of a TTRPG, also fine. This specific plot, no. No, 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 no. Bynar's borrowing a powerful computer to do computational stuff also is something that you could do. It's just the exact way that they implemented it in this episode. I wouldn't use the script of this episode. I would just pick and choose plot elements out of it and use those in a different story. At any rate, that is about all I can think of to say about this episode. Very interesting in terms of lore building, but not particularly amazing in terms of the actual story itself. See you guys next time.